Good morning, afternoon, evening or night, whenever you're watching this, welcome. It's a beautiful day in the Highlands of Scotland. In the hazy distance, about 30 miles by road, sits the snow-capped peaks of the Cairngorms mountain range. I would like to go there someday, when I've rebuilt my fitness levels a bit, climb a mountain or two, wild camp in the valleys between, and maybe do a spot of prospecting. I think the best treasures I could expect to come away with would probably be the experiences, the memories, the photos and the footage, but there's also gemstones and gold in Vanvar Hills. Today I'm on a low hillside all the way over here, and the scenery is beautiful, but less obviously so. I am hopeful though that I can find a few things worth filming. I do have some ideas of where to look. They don't look like much, but there's a series of mounds along the top edge of this field, and local legend maintains that they are graves. There is a case for that. The Gaelic name of this hill can be translated as meaning field of great slaughter or battle, and there was a notable and momentous battle in the area. In 1690, the defeat of the Jacobite forces at the nearby Battle of Cromdale brought their rebellion to an end. But that was 2.5 miles away, and Scots Gaelic is a fairly old dialect of an old language, and it's been around since the 13th century. Some words have gained more than one meaning, so the hill name can be translated as Field of Great Slaughter or Battle, but it can also be translated as Field of Stones. The Highlands have a lot of such places with archaic place names and lost history, too many probably for comprehensive coverage of archaeological study. The present use of this field is grazing for cows, and where I'm going first is, or rather was, once used as a cowshed. It is more than just a cowshed though, it is a multi-use barn, dating, I would guess, to sometime in the late 17th to mid-18th century, formerly part of a clan estate, along with a nearby castle, which was sold off in 1970. It has been repaired and rebuilt in parts. It's had a new roof and a replacement wall over the years. But farming practices have changed considerably in the last 70 years, and the barn eventually fell out of use. It is now more than 20 years abandoned, and in the slow process of falling apart. And there it is. There is a cottage and a farmhouse fairly near to the barn, and though they do have shared history, they are not connected by ownership. The tenant farmer who I think owned the farmhouse did not own the farmland. He lived there at the same time that my girlfriend was growing up hereabouts, and he was the last person to use the barn for farming. Sadly, he's long gone now, and I've been told by several local people that it's fine for me to explore the barn, photograph and film there, and even to take things if I find anything that I particularly want, as long as it isn't actually part of a structure. Nobody else seems to want to do anything with it at all. The last time I visited this barn was about 16 months ago, and it wasn't with any thought of what it might contain, other than the possibility of photographing the barn owl. I have asked, and there hasn't been any sign of it for quite a while, so I don't think it'll be there now. This end wall was the first part of the barn to collapse, and that was a long time ago. The wooden replacement might be the last repair that this building ever gets. Trough along the back wall. This, I guess, has been fenced off because it's not considered to be structurally sound. Can see the back wall looks a bit like it's peeling off. This all looks relatively new and stable until the wall goes. And over here in this beam cradle, there's a nest. Quite a large nest. The interior bowl is about 8 inches across, made of mud, sticks and straw. But without any feathers or egg fragments, I can't hope to even try to identify the previous occupant. Anyone else know? Oh, a bottle. Looks very much like a drinks bottle, and Vulcanite Stopper, which was quite common usage from the 1880s to the 1940s, and then in decline until the 70s. The bottle itself does not look all that old. Sang & Co. Elgin. That's a fairly small town about 30 miles north-northeast of here, and the name immediately brings to mind Lord Elgin, infamous for taking about half the surviving statues from out of the Parthenon in Athens, ostensibly to protect them, but a large part of his intent was, undoubtedly, to decorate his stately home in Scotland. I could climb up there, but I think there might be stairs at the other end. First though, ground floor, and I see a box. That looks like an adze and a huge brass belt buckle. I will have a closer look inside that box, but first I'm in wandering mode, so I don't recognise that exact tool, but it does remind me of some blacksmithing things I've seen. Anyone have a better idea? A few more nests, and one of them does look recognisably like a barn swallow nest. The other, no idea, but they both look abandoned. The stairs have collapsed. I did remember them, but didn't remember if they were actually up. All I can clearly remember of that visit was string, years and years of baling twine, a few rabbit skulls, and the owl. The rabbit skulls were underneath this machine, which I think, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, might be an antique hand-powered threshing machine, albeit incomplete. If that's right, then it probably predates the last tenant farmer, who, as far as I know, only farmed cows. That hole suggests a bigger hole in the roof of the upstairs room I haven't seen yet, and another barn swallow nest up there. Where haven't I looked down here? Outside. Rusty farm implement and wire, and looks like there might once have been a lean-to shed built onto the side. No nests along the external roof line. This wall is roughly 80 centimetres thick. I guess that provided some insulation for animals in winter. The winters here would have been brutal back when this barn was built. It's still far more likely to get snow than most places in the UK. Next, I guess, is the wardrobe, so let's see if it's a gateway to Narnia, or more likely if it has any skeletons in it. Kinda looks like it might have once been the owl's nest, or at least a perch. And in the drawer, can you see that? There's nothing in there. And the drawer is jammed, probably expanded with damp, and the other drawer will be the same. Oh well. Trigger warning, there's a slightly mummified rabbit skeleton. Oh wow, didn't expect that. Did the camera see it? Action replay. The climb up looks safe enough, but that beam there does not. Maybe. That pillar is supporting a quarter of the length. I'll think about it. And about how to climb up here, because I can see a bottle, a green poison bottle, and an earthenware pot. I figured the scene from this side, the light and the shadow and the shapes, would make a much better photograph, and I want everything, especially the bottles, to be undisturbed. The light was a bit challenging, but it will probably do for Instagram, maybe for the thumbnail too. And now let us do an unboxing video segment, an old forgotten box of rusty things. First we've got the head of an adze, a fairly unusual one I think, haven't seen them with a mini hammer attachment on the back before. Got a leather belt, mouldy leather, and by far the biggest example of this simple design of buckle that I think I've ever seen. Quite a personal item, and I guess it might have belonged to the last farmer. There's a rusty hoe, spelled H-O-E, and this, a mould for making a child's shoe? Anything else that it could be? A small jagged chunk of a salt-glazed Victorian sewer pipe, and a piece of wood, which I think is a leg off a sofa. And that concludes my first unboxing video. I'm not sure if I want any of that, so I'll put it back for the time being. I am in the area for a few more days, so if I decide, for example, that I'd like to try and restore the adze, maybe as a tool restoration video, then I can come back and collect it. This should be doable, a one-handed climb, trying to keep the camera steady in the other. Halfway up on the pallet, one toe hold in the wall, and almost there. Not all the way up yet, just deciding if I can trust the floorboards yet, or more particularly the beams beneath them. I think so. Is that 2 terrine lids? Looks like it, and some shards in the shadows of that large packing crate. Stood up now, not quite trusting the floor, but there's rusty snow chains, a spindle, a glove, what looks like it might be a motorbike headlight, a leather collar, 5 bottles, a ceramic pot, and a lot of wooden things beyond. Wish I could take the workbench that I can see, but not going to happen. Plain drinks bottle, I think, probably beer. Also plain medicine, perhaps for animals. And this one's the exciting one, the one I've put off picking up until last. An intact flat-backed emerald green hobnail not to be taken poison bottle, quite a rare bottle dating from between about 1870 and 1915, and it's one that I haven't ever found before. And this stoneware pot looks like it was lying in dirt for a long time. I guess maybe someone else found it outside or downstairs and put it upright up here. Can't actually see any significant holes in the roof, so there's unlikely to be much wet rot to the floorboards, but I have seen quite a few woodworm holes, and dry rot is still a possibility, so as I'm here alone, probably best if I don't push my luck. The doors are locked, but I can see through a gap in the woodwork that all the walls are lined with chicken wire mesh, which is probably to discourage rats from nesting in the hay or straw. It's just an empty attic room now, not even a mysterious small box left in the middle of the floor. Evocative. Not a word I use often or lightly, but a rusty iron mug in a place that the old farmer worked every day, and it kind of looks like it might have been handmade out of an old tin can. Brings images to mind of a person, practical by necessity, making do and doing what needs to be done early in the morning, fortified by a big mug of tea. That's the end of chapter 1 of this video. I think I'll be back another day to pick up the things I've decided to take, the poison bottle, the adze, and maybe the Vulcanite Stopper from Elgin. The adze I intend to try and restore to usefulness. It's by no means an obsolete tool, and the bottle is just a thing of beauty that I want to see with afternoon sunlight streaming through as it sits in a prominent place on my windowsill. Now I'm heading down towards the valley bottom where there's apparently a stream, and I'm going to give panning for gold a try. Panning for gold that I don't actually think is there, but I'm not entirely sure what the geology of this hill is, and you never know unless you take a look. Not entirely sure if this was ever an actual wall, but if it is, it's very old. If it's not, it's still very old, just the rocks from the field piled up as a boundary. Looks like there's another one at right angles, almost completely buried. Just a boundary, don't think it's anything more significant. Starting to look like the beginnings of a stream. Yes, got running water, and a rather wonderful dead tree. An even more wonderful dead tree. Who would enjoy it if I were to recite Trees by Joyce Kilmer now? Sorry. It's not one I've memorised yet, and the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner isn't quite appropriate. The tendrils of embryonic streams are joining together into something still very small, but at least this stream looks like it's starting to cut into the rock, and that's what I want. Oh, but there's somebody already here, a cabbage-white butterfly. I will give it space. I see sparkle. Just mica, but an interesting mix of silvery grey, probably muscovite, and goldish colour. Not sure what mineral gold colour mica is. Now where should I start? I've come down the hill a bit to a spot that looks like a lot of water has come through it, and there's a tiny, tiny waterfall. Well, a 10-inch drop that I'm going to scoop sand and gravel from below. I do watch a lot of prospecting videos, like Dan Hurd Prospecting and Pioneer Paulie, both in Canada, and Vogus Prospecting in Australia. I've learned a lot from all of them, and from my own research I've discovered that I live in a place that has disappointing geology and very few mineral things worth looking for, unless I could dig down 50 feet on land that I don't own, in which case I know roughly where I could find some wonderful marine fossils in black limestone, and that is partly why I concentrate my efforts on finding man-made relics instead. If I were to hypothetically move to Scotland one day, and that is a vague possibility, my girlfriend does have family up here after all, and I love the country, then I might shift some of my focus to minerals and gold. I just enjoy being out in nature and looking for things. It doesn't really matter what. This water is cold. If this was actually a river, I think I'd stand a much better chance of reading where there might be some gold. A small stream like this doesn't necessarily behave exactly the same, and probably won't achieve the same level of sorting things by specific gravity as a river would. I really have no idea where would be best in a stream this small, but trying a few places is better than not trying at all. This is my first time trying to pan single-handed, holding a camera in the other. It's not easy. Right, that's most of the mud taken off it. So let's see. Some mica on a piece of shale. Might be limestone. The variety of rock so far suggests to me that this is not a primary bedrock sort of a place, perhaps alluvial deposits dropped by glaciers in the last ice age, and really not what I should be looking for. If there is any gold here, it would likely be very small. Some granite chips. Oh wow, lots of mica. This is going to take a while. That looks like a quartz crystal, albeit quite opaque, and beautiful orange colour. Could possibly be a low and far from gem quality example of Cairngorm crystal. Down to very light coloured sand that I think is quartz, and dancing along the top edge, weaving in and out of those grains, there's a few very, very small pieces of gold. They're at the very edge of what my eyes can see, and I have good eyes. I'm not remotely equipped to capture either footage of them though, or to isolate them from the sand, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Or not. I'm not the boss of you. Freshwater shrimp, or a water beetle larvae? Not sure. Quite unexpected that down here in the valley bottom the stream is trying, quite successfully, to burrow itself underground. I guess that maybe rainwater, independent of the tiny streams, has carried organic material, mud and soil, down off the hill faster than the stream ordinarily carries it away. Or maybe the cows bring it down when they come down to drink. Any other ideas? Very low expectations, but couldn't have asked for a nicer day for it. Anyway, I found a bit that was open. There is some gravel here, but I think any gold bigger than the last pieces I found would have sunk further than I'm prepared to dig today. A lot of organics in this top layer. The first time I ever found gold, I was 9 years old, on a campsite near an old gold mine in Wales. The mine was then a gold mining museum, might still be, and there was a stream that ran by the campsite, downstream of the mine, and me and my brothers tried panning for gold there, with margarine tubs instead of pans. I was the only one who found some gold, and it wasn't in the tub. It somehow became stuck to the edge of a plaster on my finger, and I found it when I took a break from panning and went off to the toilet. I still have that small 1mm wide grain of gold somewhere. Opaque quartz crystal with some degraded pyrites running through it, the sort of mineral grouping that might be providing the stream with a tiny, inconsequential and near invisible gold that I'm seeing. 7 pans so far, and 3 of them have had some, none of it recoverable by me. But who cares? Not me. I think I've improved a little at one-handed gold panning, and I've had fun looking. Going to the beach tomorrow, and we'll look there too. This is... I don't know if I should say where exactly it is. It'll be recognisable to anyone who knows it, but I don't want to encourage people to come and ravage this beautiful beach looking for gold, even though I've no reason to suspect they will, because I haven't found any whatsoever here. It does have some indicators that convinced me last time I was here that it might be worth bringing the gold pan for a visit, but they've not borne out. The indicators were, in the pebbles that wash up here, a lot of mineralization, a lot of quartz in close proximity to pyrites and sulfides, and a lot of black sand an inch or so down over a lot of this beach. But 10 pans of black sands from various layers, and not even the faintest sign of any gold. So I'm just going to look for pretty stones instead. very carefully and hobbling a bit because I've injured myself. Stubbed my toe really hard on a rock. Thought I might have broken it at first, but no, just very, very bruised and a little blood. On some beaches I'd search for metal and artifacts, some for river glass or sea glass. Here, see tumbled and frosted quartz crystals that could be made into jewellery or used in a craft project I'm planning. Plus there's other things like jasper and iron pyrite. What would you do with all these quartz cabochons? Suggestions are most welcome. I think I could harvest a couple of kilograms of them in a day here, if I had reason to, but I don't. This is probably enough for me, for now. And there's plenty of other interesting pebbles on this beach, like things with stripes of quartz crystals. Veins of jasper in, I think, an opaque quartz matrix. I don't think it'd polish up well, too many cracks running through it, but I still like it. Enough to pick it up again when I've accidentally dropped it. My toe was really hurting, so I've come back towards the car, and I've done a few pans here, in the bay at the mouth of one of Scotland's major rivers, a river that runs down from mountains where people find gold. And though there is a whole lot of black sand here just beneath the surface, there's absolutely no other colour showing up in the pan. I did find some copper here, old high-capacity wire with a filling of magnesium oxide. Looks like demolition rubble had been used to make a base for a boardwalk, and it was just sticking out between two large rocks. So I saw the sea, found some rocks and a bit of scrapper's red gold. All in all, injury aside, a pretty good day. A roundup time. I do love Scotland, and I hope to visit again, and again, and again. There's so many places of wonderful beauty there, and I've barely scratched the surface of what I could film. I have a drone now too, thanks to the very kind generosity of people donating through Ko-fi, so the possibilities of filming have expanded considerably. For instance, fairly near to where I was staying on that quiet holiday, there is a lake. And in the lake there is an island, and on the island there are the ruins of a castle. A drone could fly over that, and though there isn't actually much inside the outer walls, it would still be good footage, and there's stories of history there that I could research and tell. I'd quite like to kayak in that lake too, dragging a magnet around, and maybe metal detect in the shallow water near the castle. Not sure if that's actually allowed. I'd have to check beforehand. Anyway, that tangent is academic. At the moment, the kayak my girlfriend owns is too large, and we have no roof rack for it. We're going to try and sell it come spring, maybe buy an inflatable kayak instead, and maybe I'll get an underwater metal detector one day too. I hope that, although the main subject of this video, the barn, was a relatively humble choice of things to film, that I did a reasonable job of presenting some of the beauty that I see in falling down buildings. By all means do tell me if I failed in that regard. The finds there, well, the bottle turned out to be in near-mint condition. It did have some creosote in it, and creosote is nasty, oily, and carcinogenic, so I was very careful cleaning it out, and eventually managed to do that without touching any of it, and I safely disposed of it, leaving an almost sparklingly clean green bottle. I'm happy with the results. The ads I'm now unsure of. The hammer bit on the back wasn't a problem at all when I took it. But I saw an Aquajigger video recently in which he was shown a collection of axes by a blacksmith, and one of them was designed specifically for slaughtering cows, with a hammer part exactly like this one on the back of it. If that is what this hammer part was used for, then my desire to restore it will evaporate. And I'm struggling to find out for sure either way. If you happen to know for sure, then please do let me know. The Vulcanite Stopper is a nice little regional relic that I'm going to keep as a tourist keepsake. It's from a company that no longer exists, though they were still in business until relatively recently, officially dissolved in 2013. They were incorporated apparently in 1975, so this stopper is perhaps one of the youngest ones I'll ever find. I did find gold, but not any that I can show. There's a possibility of some micro-scale gold being trapped in some of these rocks, and if I fancied, I could laboriously crush them up and find out. I have no other use really for the larger stones here, yet, but no real desire to crush them up either, so I'll keep them for the time being and maybe put them in a terrarium or two when I get around to that project. The smaller pebbles are for a planned craft project. It's possibly the next one I work on when I've finished with the really time-consuming one that I've been working on for far too long now. The copper I didn't find on film, but, well, I found it on the holiday. This coil of wire I found embedded in a mud path, and this lot used to be some high-voltage mineral-insulated cable, which was basically some copper wire inside a caking of magnesium oxide, inside a copper tube, inside a plastic coating. A pain to dismantle, but I got the hang of it eventually, and now I have some copper to melt, and a tub of magnesium oxide, which isn't generally considered a hazardous material. I'll dispose of it when I found out if it's okay in the regular trash. That's for fines, and now for thanks. I mentioned earlier in the roundup that I now have a drone. It's a DJI Mini 2, a very small and light drone that nevertheless has a good camera and built stabilization, and is probably the best option for a beginner with relatively high hopes of getting good aerial footage. So a huge thank you is due for all the kind people who contributed via Ko-fi. Without such generosity, I'd still be on my first camera, still be editing on a failing old PC, and not now have the ability to film from the sky. Thank you so much. There have been 2 things bought off my Amazon wish lists since the last video. So, a big thank you to the person who kindly bought these batteries. Alas, they came without a packing slip, so I don't have a name to thank, but thank you nonetheless. They are very useful, and I do actually have an imminent use for some, replacing the ones in my second favourite head torch. I always take 2 head torches when I go exploring tunnels now, because it's not particularly sensible wading in a river when you can't see a thing. Been there, done that. Thank you, whoever you are. From my other wish list, somebody has kindly bought this big box of flapjacks. This is one of the few things on that list that is directly to do with video making, since these are my preferred snack to take with me when I go out mudlarking. Again, sadly, no packing slip, so though I know who to thank, I don't know that person's name. Thank you very much. It's a lovely gift and very much appreciated. Finally, a big thank you to everyone who's liked, disliked, subscribed, commented, shared my videos. It all helps. I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, and if you'd like to, then any show of appreciation is very much appreciated. I hope that you're all keeping safe and well, looking after yourself and loved ones as best you can. Thank you all very much for watching, and for now, goodbye.